What is happening? What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming along with me on this fun ride. Today, we're going to dig into Villains Land and see if we can figure out what one of those marquee attractions could be for this much anticipated land coming to the Magic Kingdom. So let's not waste time. Let's just dive into it. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get into those details. So, coming out of Destination D23, Disney just barely scratched the surface on what we can expect from this new land. They gave us no real details on what to see, but where that inspiration is coming from. They talked about how the Imagineers are taking these trips over to Europe to look at some of the different Baroque architecture, and they came up with a new term themselves. It was like convoluted architecture that they're going to use to make the nuances and the immersive feel of Villains Land once it finally does open. And they kind of started connecting the dots a little bit. They showed the places they went, and you could kind of easily see how, like, for example, France could easily tie to the villain Gaston. If Gaston's really a villain, that's up for you to decide. But anyways, they didn't really talk about what we could expect in the land. I wanted the juicy details. I wanted the information that we're all waiting for. I wanted to hear, like, what are some of the concepts for a show? What are the concepts for merchandise? What are the concepts for restaurants and quick service and snacks? Who could we potentially interact with? And of course, the rides themselves. But we're still a little bit of ways away. It seems like Disney is still trying to finalize the exact plans, as they've only released one piece of concept art at this time. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a rough idea and we can't start to look ourselves at what could potentially be one of the marquee attractions of this land. So let's kind of dig into that today. That's what I'm here to talk about. I'm trying to use some of my personal knowledge from my time at Disney, as well as different information I've learned over the years from reading different Imagineering books, etc. So back in 2024, Disney made the grand announcement. They came out at the D23 event and they said that they are expanding the Magic Kingdom, a sizable expansion, 2 lands to be exact. We're going to add a Cars land. We're going to add a Villains land. And here we are today, a little over a year later, and we're starting to see the work get started. Disney has already closed off the Rivers of America, Tom Sawyer Island, to start making room for this expansion, with the first one being Cars Land. And we got a lot more details on Cars Land already, but we still haven't got those details on Villains Land. All they've given us is that initial piece of concept art, and let's be honest, the concept art is what it is. It's concept art. It's meant to be inspiring. It's supposed to give you the feelings of what you're going to experience the first time you walk back into this land. It's not the final images. It's not going to give you the detail we're looking for to know what's going on. But it doesn't mean that Disney doesn't hide things like Easter eggs in this concept art to kind of pique our interest, we'll say. And it doesn't mean that they're not trying to show us what they're going to do without explicitly calling out what's going to happen. So on that initial piece of concept art, we got that eerie sky. We got that, thorn bushes rolling through with the crow sitting on top. We get the beautiful waterfalls happening. We get the castle in the distance. It feels eerie. It feels dark. It feels like you wanted to if you're going into an area known for villains. And then over on that left-hand side, in the distance, breathing this bright green fire, is none other than the iconic villain, Maleficent, in her dragon form. And Disney wouldn't put that in unless we know for a fact that Maleficent's going to be there. And let's be honest, when it comes to Disney villains, there's nobody more iconic than Maleficent herself. This is the character that Disney has kind of leaned on heavily when it comes to Disney villains. Taking consideration the recent opening of the new villain show over at Hollywood Studios, one of the marquee villains in there is Maleficent herself. So we can almost expect, almost project that Disney will use her in this land as well. And then if we look over to the left-hand side of the dragon, very faintly, if we kind of use our imagination a little bit and really kind of dive into those details, what appears to be a full-fledged coaster track. And this makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for Disney to put a coaster in the Villains Land because it's supposed to be intense. It's supposed to be that feeling of evil. And what's more, quote-unquote, evil or heart-pumping than an actual coaster as far as that goes. So let's take those two things, let's park them to the side, and now let's take a step back in time and kind of start to connect these dots. So let's take a step back to about 15, actually closer now to almost 30 plus years ago. So 30 plus years ago, Disney started to work on their fourth theme park, Animal Kingdom. And Animal Kingdom was going to be focused on really three realms of different types of animals. You have obviously the current environment that we're familiar with. We're talking gorillas, tigers, lions. We got Africa, we got Asia, we got treks, we got expeditions, we got the safari. There's also supposed to focus on prehistoric animals, dinosaurs. And we got Dinosaur or Dinoland USA with the dinosaur ride and with Primeval Whirl. And that's now being transformed into Tropical Americas, which will probably bring it closer to more real life, animals that'll be involved inside this area, similar to Africa, similar to Asia. But the area I want to focus on is the area that was actually never built. And it was supposed to be the area known as Beastly Kingdom. And this area is supposed to focus on the fable, the mythological creatures of different books and different stories of our time. So think about creatures that are like unicorns, dragons, and things along those lines. And it's the dichotomy that's happening between the good and the evil that makes Beastly Kingdom stand apart from most Disneylands. So essentially what's happening is they're using the idea and the concept of a unicorn as good and the concept of that the dragon is bad. And you have a dark side and a light side of this area. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to focus on the dark side. Unicorns are great and all, don't get me wrong, but today the dragon is the most important thing. Now the project associated to Beastly Kingdom got really far down the line. So far that Disney made an announcement about it. Disney included dragons, if you look at the original artwork for what Animal Kingdom's logo was going to be. And so much so that we got an idea of what even the attractions would be when this land would officially open. But unfortunately things happened and the project got shelved. The project got shelved because in the 1990s Disney had other ventures they were working on, major one being Euro Disneyland, and unfortunately that did not get off on the right foot, which caused Disney to kind of slow other projects, mainly the expansion and the addition of Beastly Kingdom. But with that concept art and with the knowledge we have, we did get an idea of what the attraction was going to be. The key attraction in the evil or dragon side of Beastly Kingdom was going to be called Dragon Tower. And the idea was going to be that the dragon has taken over this tower full of treasure and guarded it with its life. And you, as a guest, were going to come upon this tower and start walking your way through it. And as you go through the queue, you're going to encounter different things, mainly bats. And the bats are there trying to recruit you to help them steal the treasure back from the dragon. And this was going to be a coaster. This was going to be a roller coaster type of ride for Disney that is meant to be a giant show building, where inside that show building will have, at that time, would have been its largest animatronic, a dragon, that was designed to move very quickly, very swiftly, and interact with coaster cars at different points of the ride. So the actual coaster would come in and out of this area, and the dragon would interact with ones at different times, turning 360 degrees, interacting back and forth to have that kind of overall experience that you were working with the bats to distract and steal the treasure as far as that goes. Now, we never get the full details of all the ins and outs of how the ride would operate. Some people believe the ride could have been suspension based. Some believe the ride could have been a regular coaster. Because the attraction was never built and never got to that final stage, those decisions were never released to the public, and Disney has never come back and said, hey, this is exactly what we're talking about. However, one of the big things about Imagineering that we always need to keep in mind is all great ideas don't disappear. And what's meant by that? So when you read different books from different Imagineers, like I have myself, for example, Kevin Rafferty talks about this whole concept that many ideas and concepts for attractions and experiences do happen at Walt Disney Imagineering, and they're just not the right time. Maybe it's not the right time for the right IP, maybe it's not the right time from a funding perspective, or who knows, maybe the technology is not even there at that point. And what they do is they take these concepts, these ideas, and they put them into a quote-unquote file cabinet to be used at a later date. So we can probably assume pretty strongly that this concept of a roller coaster based dragon ride has been put in that file cabinet. You see where I'm getting? I think you do. So why couldn't Disney take this whole concept of a dragon coaster that is very far down the development line and we'll call it Skin It or Reimagine It as a Maleficent ride. With that same ability to go in and out of a main show building, replace the dragon with Maleficent herself, and all of a sudden you have an attraction that is very far down the line of development and costing Disney probably less money for all the early stages of concept and whatnot. And additionally, if we think about animatronics over the past 30 years and how much they've advanced, the ability to create a realistic dragon that can interact in multiple directions in a show building that has multiple cars coming through at speed and velocity, that becomes even more and more feasible and much more, well, in this case, cost effective to do than it probably did back 30 years ago when Disney was putting together this concept for the first time. Now, will this concept come up? Will this actually be the attraction? I'm not sure. But if I was personally connecting the dots and I was looking at this from a Disney perspective, both on a business end of it and from a theming, it just makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think? Does it make sense to you? Do you have a different idea? How else could Disney kind of come up with an attraction here? Let me know. Throw it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, your ideas. I'm sure between all of us here, we can make some really cool attractions and rides and experiences. So, as always, you know what to do. Smash that like button, hit that bell so you know when more videos come back out. If you want to support the channel, I really appreciate it if you check out our merch shop. We got great stuff like this hanging out there where you can go and purchase it. The link's down in the description. And as always, keep checking out our blog and our different articles that I post over at DisMornings.com. And I will see you in the parks.